All right, let's get after it. So, we've had a chance now to do what's called paper prototyping, and we've started to think through what kind of would go into a first draft of the game. Now, again, our first idea here is subject to change. It's just a first draft, and technically we don't really even have drafts yet. A draft would be something like this. So, this is a game design brief. This is a design document that we've put together as a live fire exercise. This is used in the game design industry by one of my colleagues, a guy named James Hostetler. Cool guy. He is consenting to let us use this in our educational setting for free. This is something that game employers like Electronic Arts or Parker Brothers, a board game design company, or Cephalofair Games, makers of popular games like Gloomhaven and Frosthaven, they use game design briefs to kind of get out on paper, to get out of your head and into sort of an easy, workable format to sort of move the design process along. Because, you know, games can be complex. You have kind of infinite options for putting together what you need so you can accomplish some good interpretation. So I'm going to take you through this, and we'll use this as our format for Wednesday's first draft of the game. Okay? It is 4 pages long, but it's not really a big essay or anything like that. So I'll put a copy of this on the website, and each of these you can pretty well answer in like a sentence or two. Like, it's not even worth firing up ChatGPT 3 to cheat on this. It's just a sentence here, a sentence there, pretty quick. You'll get the idea very quickly. So, section 1, what is your game? What's the 10-second description of the game, the so-called elevator pitch of it? Just write about what your game is, and if it's a game at all, based on the game design hallmarks we discussed in class. You can change your mind, but by now you've brainstormed and should have a decent idea. We've talked through each of these and had a chance to get a sense of it. For those of you who aren't quite up to this point yet, like you're not sure where you want to go with your game design, still thinking about it, this will be a good way to structure the questions that we went through today together and kind of move along. So, second part of question, or area 1, if you can, try to describe how long you want the game to last. Is it a pick up and play game or a story-based linear game, right? Pretty self-explanatory. And some of these have kind of a narrative to them, a process, a sequence of events, or structures or mechanics that you go through. Others are just kind of, well, we'll grab this in the visitor center and we'll just kind of do it. Right? It's more of a grab and go style game. And neither is better than the other. One is going to be better than the other for accomplishing what you need for it to accomplish relative to your specific topic that you've chosen for this particular exercise this semester. Okay? So, you're not super locked into stuff, but at some point we do have to put pencil to paper and kind of start working some things out, and so we can practice them together. Part 2, what does your game aim to do? What's the purpose of it? Like, why are we using this game? Again, just a sentence or two. I want to use this to explain or help people explore for themselves interactively what are some of the utility values, what are some of the living off of the land values of some tree species near us. Right? 1 sentence. Quick and easy, but having that sentence lets you say no to so many good ideas that will make this so much more work than it has to be. Okay? So, the whole point of this game design brief is to put a nice, healthy, so-called delimitation, a nice fence around how big this can possibly grow so that it's a sane assignment or exercise instead of this huge thing that'll just grow and grow and grow and grow, and so forth. All right, so what themes do you want your game to represent? Or what specific chunk or thematic content idea inside of your larger theme that is unifying across the local species here in Southern Illinois that you can live off of, for example, as a broader theme? What setting? Is this an indoor game? Is it an outdoor game? We're going to start sophisticating our understanding of this game. Some games require an even number of players. If you have a game of 2 teams, you have to have 2 players to play chess. And if you've got 1 player that day in your visitor center, we're not playing chess. If you've got 5 players, we're still not playing chess. Some games, super flexible, right? Riley had a great idea for like a sharks and minnows and seals game that you can kind of run with 10 people or 50 or 100 or 5. It's very flexible in that way. So that's a good game for our purposes, right? 1 or 2 player games, not bad, just less useful for us if they're rigidly exactly for 1 or 2 players. All right. Part 4, what individuals and design tools does your plan require? This is another delimitation question on the game design brief. This is designed to keep this sane and accomplishable for you. If you come up with this huge, grandiose plan that's going to cost, well, some of the recent Halo games cost in the hundreds of millions of dollars to develop for 40, 50 hours of playtime. That's too much, right? So the game design as it lives in your head right now, what software do you need to make that happen? Like Word? Or are you just downloading some pictures off the internet for a Pictionary style game? Okay, well, we're going to need a computer and a printer for that. And that's okay, but we need to make this stuff explicit because when we're designing games professionally for interpretation, it's never just you that's going to be using the game. You have to tell somebody who's thinking about this game, you're going to need a printer for this. Because sometimes that's not available, right? A lot of summer camps just don't have printers available, okay? And that's fine. But we just want to sort of make explicit these assumptions of, oh, well, I'll just go print off these materials and I'm good to go. If you don't have a printer, it's like this game doesn't even exist. All right. 5, what is your target audience? And think about this one a good couple of ways. How old are your players? Well, in interpretation, we generally don't have strong or rigid control over the age groups and the energy levels of our players. It's going to be families coming in, it's going to be old retired couples, it's going to be school groups coming in with literally students by the busload. So is your game specifically really only good for a narrow age group? Okay, what can we do that's easy and safe to make it just as appealing to a wide range of ages, a wide range of mobility levels, a wide range of cognitive abilities? Not everybody is a rocket surgeon, right? We want to make sure our game is fun for everybody. You don't have to be Einstein to play it and enjoy it. So, think about questions like, do you want your game to be globally accepted? 1 sentence. Are you developing a game concept that can be played anywhere, or is it unacceptable in some places? Think about that for a second. Is there anywhere, or are there any groups that could come to play your game where it's not culturally appropriate or acceptable for them to do that? Some cultures place a real heavy and strict, rigid emphasis on gender roles, or age roles, or marriage status roles. Does the design of your game put anybody in a weird spot relative to very conservative, very progressive, traditional values? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not, but we don't know until we ask this question. Okay? So, think about widely diverse kinds of people coming to play your game. Is it still going to work just fine for everybody, regardless of race, or ethnicity, or creed, or English speaking or reading level? Okay? Some of these games with written materials, we want to assume that our typical player has a 6th grade reading level. That's about what we can assume out of the American educational system in general. 6th grade. That's what newspapers, nobody reads newspapers anymore. But back in the day when people read the newspaper, 6th grade reading level. And we can get into a long conversation about, yes, the American educational system has failed lots of people in terms of reading comprehension. But that's what we have to work with. So, does your game feature a whole bunch of pseudo-suga and ilex canadensis, and a bunch of Latin jargon phrases that might turn a bunch of people away because it's literally Greek or Latin to them? Or is it very, very approachable, right? And it's okay if it's not. If that's part of the point of your game, like this is crunchy and technical for whatever reason, that's okay. But make the game onboard people quickly and easily. Substitute jargon, at least initially. You can introduce some of that stuff later on safely, just fine. How educated do you need to be to play this game? All right. What cultural groupings do you expect your players to be? Magical Pony Adventure is likely to attract certain crowds. It can be effective to use that knowledge to your advantage. It's entirely your choice. Like, if your interpretive game, for whatever reason, is really appealing to bronies, okay, that's fine. That's just a design decision, but you just need to be aware of that, okay? For our purposes, a more reasonable example might be something like, does a game targeting folks or asking folks to go stomping down a creek looking for flint and chert for napping and stuff like that? Does everybody like to do stuff like that? What do we do for the people that are not cool with that? Can they walk next to the stream? Is that okay? Can they walk on the trail at the spine of the ridge looking down onto the folks splashing down the stream and sort of keep pace and everybody's close by and can hear each other and can call back and forth and sharing the excitement of the scavenger hunt or whatever you structure it as? Like, do we have some flexibility in terms of those things? For some people, for some cultures and subcultures, going into the woods is like going home. For other people and other subcultures, going into the woods is a terrifying thing because that's where people get killed. Okay? So you want to do some of that thinking beforehand on what you're asking people to do in your game. And that deeply embedded cultural aversion to going into the woods isn't your fault. You're just a forcer. You're just doing interpretation. Let's go play some games, right? But it is something you need to be aware of and ready for, so that you can make this safe and enjoyable and fun and appealing in the first place for everybody, regardless of their subcultural background. All right. What does your game appeal to? How will it affect people? Last week we were talking about what's the emotional basis of the game. What kind of response does it trigger in people or evoke? We talked about how Monopoly was designed by moralists in the early 20th century, almost 100 years ago, or about 100 years ago now, to teach people of the evils of money and a capitalistic society that commoditizes our happiness into things like property, and how unfun it is. The central emotion of Monopoly is the grinding depression of losing everything that you own. That is literally the purpose of that game. Did you know that? Wow, it blows my mind. But it works, right? Playing Monopoly, one person ends up with all of the everything. Or the bank does. Usually one person. Okay? So, what is your game designed to trigger? That sense of, oh, I've accomplished something. I figured out the riddle. I figured out how to use every one of these tree species for living off of the land, or I figured out how to be the one last surviving pilotfish, or whatever your game is. That can be a positive appeal, all right? So how do you want people to feel playing your game? Again, just one sentence for each of these. You don't have to write essays. That's not particularly useful. Your game might also have a functional benefit. Is it being made for a charitable cause? Can it raise awareness for something? Okay. Does your game fundamentally raise awareness for the topic that you are interpreting? We're not just making games for the fun of making games. It's hard work. Okay? And again, we're going to be playtesting these so much, we're going to get a little bit bored with them. Like, we're going to be over it by the time we're done. And that's a mark of satisfactory completion. That's good, to reach that level of familiarity with the game. But, fundamentally, does it speak to your topic? Does it answer or illuminate your themes somehow? If not, back to the drawing board. All of this is in service to that goal. Okay. Inspirations. Pictionary. Sharks and minnows. Tag. Crossword puzzle. Right? It's really okay. It's a very efficient move to borrow heavily or be inspired by existing games. All right? That lets you shorthand a lot of the discussion and teaching involved. Teaching is slow. All right. What are some competitors? we don't really have to think too hard about this question. Moving on. How is your game different than what it's based on? It's Pictionary, but what's the but? It's a crossword puzzle, but maybe it's just a straight crossword puzzle. Okay, cool. Moving on. And importantly for all of us, because we live on planet Earth in a money-oriented society, what's the time budget? What's the human capital, like the skill budget? What do you have to know, like typing, graphic design, carving stuff, producing the tokens, looking at the things that you manipulate, using a rope to define the boundary of your shark's minnows pool? How much does that rope cost? You just need some high visibility twine? Maybe that's good enough. Maybe it's got to be a thicker climbing rope or something like that. That's more durable for whatever reason. Okay, so what's it going to cost to do this thing? Okay, all just questions to help you think things through for Wednesday. All right, any questions on this stuff? 10 areas, it's about 20, 25 questions out of those 10. About one sentence for each, plenty enough. I'll post this on our course website. You can download and fill out. And go from there. Any questions about the game design brief? All right, cool. You're welcome to hang around here and work on this for a bit. I'm here to answer questions. Otherwise, we'll dismiss a bit early and hang out outside in the lovely weather, design a game for interpretation. Have a nice afternoon. See you on Wednesday. I'll be around for questions.
He's using like a guess who game board and changing their cards.
Totally fine.
Okay.
All right, for Wednesday, come on in with your game design brief and a prototype, a playable prototype of the game. Doesn't have to be beautiful, just got to be draft one. Just got to work.